Well, some say you can't raise your IQ, you're stuck like that. Others say they figured out the tricks to unlocking the limits of the brain. Well, April Braswell is here to fill us in on all of that. April, welcome back to Smart Life. Now,
Thanks.
you say you absolutely believe you can unlock the brain and actually grow your IQ. I want to know that it's just a little miracle grow, a little water, and we're good.
Not exactly. I know, wouldn't that be funny? It was just funny because earlier you mentioned the chocolate. I gave you chocolate. I was like,
Yes,
only
you
it
did
was
give
the
me
it only
chocolate.
was the See's chocolate.
I felt
kind that
smarter
would,
right away.
Of course, if only it was that kind of chocolate that would help us. So with our IQ, what's really fascinating is, and this is important both for parents who are, with their kids in terms of what you can do with your children, as well as with the aging population over 50. Everyone's always worried about, am I going to get Alzheimer's? There are things you can do not only in terms of increasing the health of your brain, but also in terms of continuing to grow it. So it's not necessarily a given that this is your IQ and it's preset, as well as with aging, that's it. It's hopeless, and you're going to diminish your brain capacity over the years. You can improve it.
And you say this is great information for you because you grew up where IQ was everything. The moment that light bulb went off and you realized you could actually change your IQ, it made a huge difference in your life. Tell us.
It does. So I grew up in Princeton, New Jersey, which is where ETS is, and the joke that I make is that, my goodness, they strapped those number 2 pencils into our hands. Yes, this dates me because it was the number 2 pencils for us versus all the computerized stuff. But ever since they could strap those number 2 pencils, I'm sure somewhere. But it was they tested their tests on us in Princeton at all the different schools, and it was absolutely, your IQ was set, and there are actually psychology studies from the 70s and earlier that demonstrate in academia with kids in the school place that when the teachers were told, these are the kids who are gifted, here are the kids who are not.
Right.
That how they treated them.
I remember they would separate us in the classroom.
Absolutely.
Smart kids on this side.
You were not kidding.
Here
and
I guess the least intelligent ones were often in the back. You'd think they would have been in the front, but they were in the back.
It made a
in
difference.
My classrooms anyway. Yeah.
All of the studies, because of course they want to keep replicating this with different studies. There are multiple studies that demonstrated that when they did that, the kids who the teachers treated and had the law of expectation of, you'll be intelligent, creative, and resourceful, were and scored the best on their tests. So environment and our law of expectation for those who we have around us, how they treat us as well as how we treat ourselves, makes a huge impact really for our intelligence and the results of our intelligence.
Absolutely. So if we want to set about the business starting today of just raising up our IQ, where would you say first thing you do, first place you go, what do you do?
There are a couple things that are very easy to do that everyone can do. One is, and it's one of my certifications is in hypnosis. So there are sort of different ways people do that. It's prayer. So the
I'm
science
certified
of prayer.
In hypnosis too.
There we go.
So look
we're
deeply
mesmerizing.
into the camera.
Yes, we're mesmerizing and fabulous. So it is deeply. So it's just the idea of that alpha brainwave state is one of the ones where we have, it's the most regenerative for our cells and for our brain cells. So doing a guided meditation, self-hypnosis, doing your prayer meditation time is something where when you do that every single day, it is wonderful for our brain cells.
Okay, and we don't have to be legalistic about this. This doesn't have to be yoga. It doesn't have to be meditation, because no one actually really knows what that is.
I know.
It can be your prayer time. In my
Yes.
instance, I like to do my Bible study time in the morning. I know my
Yep.
day goes so much better when I do
Yep.
that. Finding out what works for you.
Yes.
Yes.
It's going to the alpha brainwave state. So that's why I say prayer meditation, because for me as a Christian, that's the phrase we use in the Bible. So in other people, they hear meditation, they go in other directions with it. I'm like,
and it doesn't have
any
to
of
be in
those
the morning
practices,
either, because
no.
I know my mom swears by doing hers at night, and always like, Gina, you should do it at night. I'm like, I do it in the morning. It works better for me. If I wait till night, I'm just done. You know, I can't. So it really is a matter of what works best for you. But getting into that, what did you call it?
The alpha brainwave state.
Alpha brainwave state.
Yes. And it's the most creative brainwave state. It is what Einstein used for, Einstein, I'm thinking Princeton. Edison, also New Jersey, used for a lot of his inventions. He would take himself to the alpha brainwave state of where you're almost asleep, and he was holding a ball, and it would wake him up. Just as he was dropping off to sleep, the ball would drop, and he would catch whatever was his peak creativity.
Wow.
So it's both about increasing your IQ and then how to leverage it in your life.
Okay, so that's the very first thing. I also read something about exercising while you're doing a brain activity.
Yes.
Isn't exercising enough for my brain to do? I mean, do I really have to read a book while I'm exercising? They were talking about either listening to a
Yep.
more technical book, like a language book or something like that, while you're running. Oh, can't I just have my hip hop while I run? I really, is that something that it seems to be pretty substantially proven at this point,
Yes.
that doing that brain activity while you're exercising expands your mind in some form?
It does, and what's so fascinating with it is the reason why is because it is embedded into our physiology. We literally, current science is demonstrating that we think of our brain as just in our head. Our mind is in the protein layer of every cell of our body. So when we are activating more cells and using all of our physiology, we are then getting that into the protein layer of our mind cells in our body.
That makes so much
So
sense,
it's
yeah.
not just, oh, it is my mind and I need to sit here quiet and stilted. And most people, the folks who are in their cubicles 9 to 5, they show that you need to actually get up, move around, do things, hydrate, eat well throughout the day. If you are only sitting still all day long,
Yeah.
you are losing out, your employer is losing out on your brain ability and capacity during the workday.
And you do notice, I hate to say it, but you do notice when you work out, just like when you
Yeah.
do have that prayer time, that meditation time, there's just more mental clarity. I
Yes.
guess this is all about flexing the brain, and to really flex the brain, you have to have that serotonin enter the brain, and
Yes.
that's only going to happen if you're doing something in conjunction with sitting and thinking. Because sitting and thinking, after a while, you begin to cloud up. I remember working on my PhD for days and months and years, and I remember sitting there, and I would know there was a point where I was no longer making any
Yes.
sense, and I'd have to go do something
Yes.
physical. And so you're saying if you combine those things, that's a great way to learn. Let me ask you this. What about these news sites that are out there, Lumosity, and I think there are probably others that claim they can raise your IQ? They even will document it for you, give you a little bar graph. I love bar graphs.
Of course.
What's wrong with us?
I know.
They give you a
I
little
want
bar graph that
documentation.
day by day, they measure your intelligence and tell you how much more intelligent you're getting.
So those sort of sites, it's absolutely great. I'm not personally familiar with that one in terms of exactly what it's offering and, is it free or things like that. But a lot of those sites where they are offering quizzes or ways to measure your IQ, when you say I want to increase my IQ, if you are not at some point doing a benchmark of like getting on the scale when you want to lose weight, at the beginning of, we need to document at the start of all this roughly what my IQ was now, and then having those sites where you measure it. Well, we're all sort of the Pavlov's dogs. It's like, I like getting the feedback
The
of,
reward.
absolutely, I
Sure.
increased my IQ doing this.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's not just I want to increase my IQ, because IQ is things where it's problem solving, it's memory. It also has to do with our speed of processing.
Right.
And that's the one area that I just haven't seen as many studies that show, unfortunately, it's the one thing with aging, that our speed of processing does diminish over time. If they can find more ways to increase that, wonderful, but I haven't seen that. So rather than be frustrated with trying to increase that over 45 and over 50, focus on the others. Focus on my ability to still do math problems, of increasing my vocabulary, of doing that prayer meditation time, of doing a study, of doing an alpha brainwave process each day, as well as getting enough sleep and your diet. The exercise, I've heard different things with exercise where they talk about doing things that have to do, it's usually the guys in their 20s who are talking about these like major stamina things. I was like, well, God bless you, isn't that
Well,
great?
like the circuit where it changes up a lot.
Right.
And supposedly that's better for your brain
It is.
chemistry, supposedly the changing it up a lot. I have one quick question. We
Yes.
have no time, but I've got to get this in.
Please.
I have this friend of mine who's a brilliant scientist at UCLA, and I have the hardest time talking to him because his brain processes so slow and methodically that you'd think he's dumb, but I happen to know he's brilliant.
Yeah.
What is it in people's, you talked about processing time. What is it about some people that they tend to process information really quickly, like you and I both do? We move through these subjects like that. And some people that I couldn't interview him on my show because
Right.
he would go too slow.
Yes.
But he's super bright. What's going on there?
That's what the thing is in terms of with IQ. What we are measuring is really about 4 or 5 different attributes that comprise IQ. So he might even actually be processing extremely quickly. It's one of the things with the introverts. So much is going on internally. You and I are extroverts, so we're like we're
verbally processing.
We're verbally processing it, so it's great. He is like the computer is going on behind the scenes, but he may not be articulating it.
It makes so much sense. Yeah,
that's the difference.
And so there are so many different kinds of intelligence, and I think that's just so important to note. April, thank you so much for being with us. I always love having you on the show. Your calls and letters are coming up next. The number, 888-650-8176, or you can go to the Smart Life page at moneybizlife.com and click on the Ask Dr. Gina button to send us an email, or you can contact me via Facebook or Twitter. Producer Jason is always monitoring those pages during the show. And as you know, we'll be back in a moment with your calls and questions. I'm going to give you the number one more time, 888-650-8176, 888-650-8176. More Smart Life coming up in just a moment, so we hope you'll stay tuned.